Hi, Dmitry. Glad
Hi.
to meet you. Thank you for very much for being with us.
Let me then introduce the topic of our today's webinar, and as usually I will give some kind of prehistory of where it's coming from. So first of all, I think everyone here should thank Dima, because actually it was him who inspired me to start doing webinars. It was him who inspired me to build the community of people with the same interests and with the same goals, because we all want to have awakened mind. We all want to learn how to use mind mirror. We want to learn more and more and do more and more research together and exchange our experiences. So all this was inspired by Dima, and even the platform that I'm using for our website, Tilde platform, I also borrowed the idea from Dima. So I thought sooner or later you should see him, right? So why I was drawn to what he is doing. So Dima is a doctor, a professional doctor. He'll say a couple of words about himself later. But what I liked about him, he created the system of health management, which by the name of it, the system implies that it's a good systemized knowledge about health, right? And after our webinars about stress and webinars on meditation, I thought it would be good to learn these basic principles of health, mainly derived from physiology, because Dima was lucky to study with a great teacher, Konstantin Sudakov, Dima, right? And he considers him to belong to this Russian school of physiology. And when we talk about physiology, we should understand we talk about general principles of life, right? That's how life operates. That's how living organism organize themselves, right? To survive, to evolve. So these are kind of these bigger laws of nature that it's very hard to argue with, because they're there, they are fully manifested, and it's very good to know them, because actually knowing them helps us to extrapolate them to other realms than physiology. So you'll see that we can apply similar rules, in our families and how we build businesses, and, literally the way neurons interact in our brain can give us a good set of rules of how we can build complex operations, I don't know, in business, in production, in communities, anywhere, because the same simple rules apply. So I thought it would be great to know the system and to know these rules, so we know how to sustain our health, we don't have stress, and also we expand our understanding of meditation, because practice of silence, as we are going to talk about today, may well not be known by many people. They practice it somewhere, but knowing the principles behind, knowing how this practice of silence is presented by the system of health management developed by Dima, will open the whole new dimension of understanding what meditation may be like and how you can make it more successful, right? And like what actually happens while you are in silence. And so you can make better use of your time and, of course, improve quality of life in every level, because that's what the system is for. So, Dima, would you like to say a few words about yourself and how you ended up creating this system? Of course, we published your interview in our Eureka Times newsletter, and we invite people to have a look. But it would be nice to hear a few words from yourself.
Yes, thank you very much, Oksana, for presentation, for everything, for our meeting, and it's a great step for me. And I hope this is a great step for humanity also. I'm like cosmonaut now, like the first travel to the moon. So when I thought about meditation, I remembered my experience in Buddhist monastery. I was a monk, a month, maybe more, when I was when I was in monastery, and I found that there are some basic principles around meditation. So meditation is not just a process when I can achieve some goals in my life, and meditation can happen with me when I ready for meditation. So, and everything what we done in monastery, it was a process for preparation to meditation. So, and we are waiting for meditation like not we don't made meditation. We just prepare the space for meditation in our life. So, and I don't think that we can live without of stress. So, but we can cope with stress. We can know how to deal with stress, how to use the stress like a power for life, and basic principles of physiology can help us to do it. And my scientific work started from investigations in the field of stem cell biology, of regenerative medicine. That I was a famous scientist in Russia who started this work in Russia in general, and I was a chief of Center of Biomedical Science in our greatest university, first Moscow State Medical University, named by Ivan Mikhailovich Sechenov. And we worked a lot with stem cells, with regeneration, and we have many experiments, clinical trials with the stem cells, and now it really it's very famous studies in the world, and my students also work in United States, in Europe, and also in Russia, and they are great scientists. When we work with regeneration, we discovered that the regeneration process can be easily reopened by ourselves, by our self-regulation. So, and I was inspired that some people have a normal regeneration, some of them have a normal regeneration, and I wondered why it's so easy and why it's so hard. I started my own research with people. I trying to understand how regeneration regulates, and I reopened physiology for myself, because before, of course, I remember about physiology, I know everything about brain science and everything like this, but it was unuseful knowledge. It was not like life knowledge for me. So, and I started to work with myself, with my self-regulation, and with my self-regeneration of my body, and I reopen science traditions for myself, and now I want to show you very short video about our system. We made it with Oksana also. Oksana help us to translate it. It's just 2 minutes, but it's really a helpful video to open basic principles of self-regulation, of maintaining. I don't know how to better say.
We may be physically close, however, without emotional connection, we are infinitely far apart. Modern means of communication may disconnect us even more. This affects the state of our families, our children, health, self-actualization, and finances. This affects collaboration within companies, communities, and whole countries. This is so because we are strongly attached to our expectations about the world based on our past. We have lots of expectations from ourselves and life. I must earn 1 million, buy a car, a house, get married, have a child, and be happy at the same time. Our expectations never 100% match reality. This causes negative emotions which also do not fit with our ideal self. We suppress these feelings, trying to be someone else, putting on a mask of external success. Talking to others, we pretend that everything is fine, spending all our energy sustaining a happy person's role. We fall into self-deceit, lose connection with our feelings and with what truly is going on in our lives. We feel empty. In attempt to fill in this emptiness, we use food and alcohol, medicine, violence, drugs, sex, and money. Thus, we end up in addiction. Our connection with close ones deteriorates, and we find ourselves in deep solitude. To solve this problem, we have created the system of health management, uniting like-minded people all over the world. Together, we learn to reconnect with our feelings and sincerely express them to each other. As a result, we restore our wholeness and tune to ourselves, reconnect emotionally with close ones, and heal relationships with others. This improves health and brings new opportunities for self-actualization. Our positive changes via mirror neurons automatically improve the lives of people around us. SOS community is a social network where we learn to share our feelings, accepting each other with maximum honesty in all respects. Join us, share your feelings with the world. SOS is a scientifically based system founded by Doctor Dmitry Shamenkov.
Just a short.
It was awesome! Wow! The voicing, Oksana, it took me a minute to realize it was you. Gosh, you have such a fantastic voice for this. Wasn't it great, Deborah? Knocked me out. So you just uploaded this? This just got uploaded to YouTube?
Yes, yes.
I think it was done about a year ago, Judith. It was done about a year ago.
Wow. And you did the visuals? Who did the visual and the script?
Dima did the script, and I translated, and Graham checked me, and then I did the voiceover for English copy. And Dima, it was a girl from St. Petersburg, right? Lena Kanonik, who did the video behind. So I know, Judith, Dima may inspire you to do more things.
Fantastic, just beautiful. I love the way that the video was so perfectly complemented the voice, and the voice was just so beautifully paced and expressive. Clear as a bell. I could understand everyone, just flowed with the language, and it's a beautiful production. Congratulations.
Yeah, very nice, very nice.
Thank you. Was there anything in particular, hello Deborah, was there anything in particular that you picked from the information delivered in this short video? Something that caught your, I don't know, mind?
Well, the whole idea of self-healing, and I think that's a very important concept and one that's gotten lost in the shuffle. We look for healing outside of ourselves, just as we look for our satisfaction and self-actualization through other people, instead of from deep within ourselves. And I think that's the key message here. And especially in our globalized, internet world, people get lost. You get lost. You get dissociated from your inner self. It's very easy to get lost and in everything external to yourself, rather than going within and relying on your own individuality as well as common connection to all other human beings.
Yeah,
and that's what struck me too, and also that most people don't even realize there is a within, because we live in such an externalized culture that's all about interpersonal interaction, which no one really knows how to handle. And so then it becomes this, even that doesn't work. As you seek outside yourself for a solution, you can't get a solution. And most people just really don't even know that you can get quiet and that there's a source of wisdom inside that silence.
Well, not only that, but we also look for our own self-actualization through other people or through the outside world, as if that can possibly show us what we are. I mean, that's that's what I think is getting lost in the young generations that are coming up now and only have really exposure to this internet, which is kind of taking over their own selves. And that's not kind of, but it's very scary. So yeah, I think there's a very important message that comes through in this. I think it's beautifully delivered, and it's perfect. You know, the way you constructed this video, I think, works really well for those who are on the internet. It's really an internet-based video, and that's very key too nowadays.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. May I add a couple of words? Because I think everyone will question also how this whole thing might be related to our awakened mind training and what we do with the mind mirror. And literally, I was thinking about it and realized that, yes, we find ourselves now in very highly paced, times, right? And information overabundance. So it's just the speed of information, incoming information is, unimaginable. We can't process it. It's too much even to process everything. We are unable to do that anymore. And in all that, we are constantly, driven like by this, by that, by external stimuli, and we lose the focus. We lose what is really important, what we should focus on, not to get lost, to find our way, not to be overstressed with these demands and speed of life and kind of keep up with life in general. And I realized Dima's system gives you this orientation, gives you the keys, how you can stay healthy, how you can still self-actualize in these difficult times. It's not easy. And again, I'll mention that, okay, these times, they mean that we are constantly in beta. We are caught up. We are thinking, logically planning, trying to do many things at once. And it does disconnect us from our alpha, right? From our senses, our feelings, our bodies. We are too much in our minds. And we may be caught up in this, our artificial reality that we created, being disconnected from ourselves, our bodies, our inner wisdom, what our truth, what we truly want, not what others want us to buy, consume, produce, etc., but what do we want? How do we want creatively participate and realize our potential as creative beings on earth, rather than fighting, struggling, competing, doing some real constructive creative stuff. And then we of course disconnect from bigger nature scene, bigger universe. What's there? What's the whole, where is the whole evolution going? We just live in our little square box full of these ideas about money, about expectations, how other people should behave, and we are confused. We don't know, as I said, how to operate in these times and how to relate to each other, how to relate to this reality. And that's what I like, because it talks about the same thing. You get out of your little mind box overloaded with, sometimes just too much, overloaded, overstimulated in beta, getting back to your senses, to your feelings, finding connection to yourself, find the ways to communicate to others your truth, without any manipulations and competition and dishonesty. And then you connect, of course, with the higher nature, with like what's going on a country level, what's going on a planetary level, where we are heading as human beings. So it really, expands your role, expands your life, makes it richer on every level. So that's, yeah.
What you're talking about, Oksana, it suddenly hit me. We've created a world of attention deficit disorder. I mean, that's what we have. It's rampant. People take pills just to focus, period. That's what it's amounting to. And it just came to me as you were talking about all of this. There is just too much input. And it is very difficult to stay focused on one's own unless one does something in order to maintain that focus. I mean, our brains were never built to multitask. They're not built that way. They're built for one task at a time. And when we try to multitask, we make a mess. And that's kind of rampant too. So
Yeah.
it just came to me as you were talking. It is just so rampant. And everybody in the mental health field says, oh, well, it's going up, it's increasing. Well, we have a whole society that's building it, that's actually exacerbating it and accelerating it. Okay,
so what does the health system do that helps us reverse this trend toward disorganization?
well, right now it's giving pills.
But what about Dimmy's?
Dima's
Yes,
system.
yes,
Dimas.
I understand your questions. I want to share with you a point of view to our own language. It's for me is more important to see the way how we communicate. So and what I want to share with you. So it's maybe interesting for you. Sometimes when I travel a lot around the world, I forget Russian, and I speak a lot on English or on different languages, and when I came back to the Russia, I started to talk with people on Russian language, and I found that the way of my communication changed, and I start to feel Russian words, and I start to feel the origin of words, and I start to feel how they are created, how they help me to better express myself with people in communication. And when we're talking about self-healing, about trying to find ourselves outside, when you say about that we are dissociated and that we need to find ourselves, and that we need to find the question who we are and something like this. So I feel that the self it's very special creature, something like this. So I feel the self like a different, something different, not just a part of the world, but when we're talking about self-healing, for me it's about of healing of self, of general self, of self in general sense. And when we're talking about ourselves, it's for me, like for not for I'm not I don't know English well, but for me I feel that it's about our self, our biggest self. So, and I feel the self like a special being in the world, and for me it's very very important that we have really rediscovered ourselves. So we not just discovered ourselves, which are separate self, which are a part of my separate self, but for me it's about finding the self in different peoples and in other peoples around of me, and it's about finding ourselves inside. So I found our own self inside myself, and then I can express what I feel in myself to other people, and that's the way how we can find our own self. And in usual dialogue, people want to make somebody different. So when I talk, I try to push them, and I want to send them some kind of message. I want to change them. So, but everybody want to do the same, and that's the way why we usually talk a lot, and we cannot understand each other, because nobody want to listen. If I send my message to somebody, they leave their message. So if I have a message, I want to be closed, because I want to say something. I want to push my message to somebody, but I will be closed person if I don't want to change myself. My point of view to ourself. I have just a small part of the own picture of self. So, and I can see just my point of view to ourself. So when I say ourself, it's not just a word. It's about ourself, our bigger self. And if I want to be a part of bigger self, if I want to know what is a self, if I want to rediscover ourself or myself in general sense, I must do sensorily express what I feel, without of tension, without of trying to push somebody to make somebody else, and it's a first step. And for rediscover ourselves and to show what I feel, I must to feel as a first step. I must to feel what others people want to share with me. I focused not just on my feelings and expression of my feelings and what I feel, but I also trying to feel somebody else, because of if I want to share my feelings on the better way, first I need to feel what do they feel, because without of understanding where we are, I cannot express better my feelings. And for example, when somebody live on the moon, for example, or on the space station, I must know where do they live, because of it's deeply connected. How can I express myself to send them a message? Because of it, the ability to understand the message from the people depends on our environment. So it's when I go deeper to the sea, I can be closed for some message which are not connected with my state of life, or some. For example, if I will say something about nuclear physics or about regenerative biology somewhere in Afghanistan or something in Syria, now it may be unuseful, unimportant knowledge for people who want just to be alive. So that's why I must know where the people are to better communicate with them, and by the one hand, and by the other hand, I can feel them just by feeling myself, because if I can feel just myself, I can just feel what I feel, and by expression of my feelings and by communication process with others, I can share what I feel, and the people can also share with me their moment of presence. They can present themselves, their point of view to ourselves, and I can share my point of view to ourselves. But we are doing it in the moment of present, so it's a kind of also is a kind of game with words. So when I want to present something, or for example, when I want to present myself, I just can present my point of view to ourselves, and I can do it in the moment of present. I just can do it in the moment of present, and I can present what I feel in the moment of present, and also the present from me to other people. So it's kind of a gift to somebody, because of it's really it's only gift which I can do in deepest manner, with deepest sincerity, honesty to other people, because in every moment I don't have nothing. I have just myself, just my part of our own self. So it's most important, in my point of view. It's this knowledge helps us to do our work, because of without reconnection with our own self, we cannot heal our own self. And so, everything what we can get in the process of healing is we can get from the ourself. But it's not just myself. It's not just a point of myself. So that's why the process of, for example, process of meditation, or the process of creating biofeedback with the help of special devices, is every time is a process. It's about of communication process. So it's about of easiness of communication process. So I want to be communicate. I want to be connected with other. I want to be connected with ourself, with myself by the way of communication. So and I need help to be connected with others, and we all of us can help to each other to reconnect with our own self. And I hope that that's a way this is a way to reconnect with our own self for all of us, because without of this connection we cannot be healed. Because of I don't know like it in how it's same in English, but in Russian it's the word of healing. It's about of it's connected with reconnection with our own goal, when we are all connected around one goal. So in Russian it means the healing process. So it's in Russian it was исцеление. It's coming to our own goal.
Dima, may I interfere quickly here and help to explain, because what Dima is talking about, when you think about the word goal, it's one of the central concepts in the system, in physiology in general, because the goal is very important, and I'll probably still show some slides, because it will help us to structure our thoughts and clearer, get clearer communication of the ideas that Dima is trying to deliver. But goal, even in English, sounds very close to whole, right? Goal, whole. So through goal, we connect to our wholeness. We kind of stop losing ourselves, stop being torn into pieces by these external stimuli. We kind of get this focus, get this orientation that takes us in the future, takes us to adaptive result in the future. So it helps us to adapt and evolve eventually. And healing, in a way, in Russian, the word healing is also related to getting back to your wholeness. When you heal, you actually just restore your wholeness. That's what it means. And you can see this kind of logical chain from the word goal, then wholeness, and then healing. They all are connected. And yes, Dima was trying to push like quite a few ideas at once. Dima, maybe I should quickly, in a very simple language, without going into very complicated scientific, citations and definitions, just still take people through the slides so that they can get these basic principles. Because when they have kind of good structured presentation, it will help them to better understand you, okay?
Maybe somebody
one question?
Yes, of course.
I think Dmitry is also talking, and I think you're going to refer to it, not only the wholeness, but it's empathy. It's empathy. What we would say in English is empathy, stepping into another person's shoes and being, present with that other person. So it's empathy. And there are a couple of organizations, I'm working with one that's a startup that is trying to, in fact, build empathy and build it in a way that is accessible and also what we would call palatable to this generation. In other words, using virtual reality, putting them in somebody else's shoes by using a virtual reality or augmented reality platform. So I was just going to add that, and now let me just let you continue with your slide.
Thank you, Deborah. You're absolutely right, because just a couple of sentences to clarify that as well. Dima is talking about empathy, but it is impossible if you are caught up in your mind and you can't hear your own heart, your own body. You just don't know. Your instrument is broken, it's off. So if you can't sense yourself, how can you sense and be empathetic to others? You are simply just caught up in artificial mind world somewhere, disconnected from reality. And he's saying that through connecting back to your senses, you tune your instrument to better receive and understand others, right? And this tuning, it also implies you listen to others. You listen to yourself first, and then you're able to listen and hear others. and then you are able all together to kind of cooperate, relate on another level, right? That's what he means. It's just, it becomes that bigger ourself that evolves into something else on a new qualitative, level. So
the process of communication. It's a part of the process of communication, because I can rediscover myself and I can rediscover ourselves in the process of communication, because I don't know another part of reflection of the process. That's why I should know what I feel, and I can express what I feel, and to better feel myself, to better feel my senses, I should know the senses of other people, and so we start to sharing our feelings, and we can reconnect it on the field on feelings when we want to make it on the deepest manner, on honest manner, and when we know on rational way how it works, because for us it's very important to know the goal and to be connected with the goal, with a understanding of what we are doing in the moment. So, and when we know what we are doing in the moment, we can be connected on the deepest manner. So it's a part of rational communication between people. So when I know that the goal predicts my behavior and my perception, I can really reconnect. I can reconnect with others to better know what is the reality. So I hope that Oksana will introduce some basic principles of physiology to understand better what is the goal and how the goal predicts our behavior and our perception. So because of it's really important to understand how it works. Okay, Oksana. It's not just my discoveries, but it's discoveries of the big scientific school of Russian and international scientists. It's neurobiology, neurophysiology. It's not just our point of view.
if you allow me, Dima, I'll quickly flip through. As I promised, I won't be too scientific and go too much into detail, not to overload ourselves and for the sake of time, but I still want to speak out loud, the major principles, and there will be quite a few of them. They are seriously like pearls, that you can put together, and they're all related to each other. So you'll see it's actually kind of multidimensional presentation, because you can extrapolate all these principles, as I mentioned before, to other parts of your life. You'll see how they work. And in the end, I suggest, if you are interested, we could give you a list of literature or where else you can find the information in English to learn more about this, because it wasn't Dima's creation. Of course, he learned it from other scientists. So let's start, and let's start with perception, because it's really important, because our reality is defined or determined from what we actually perceive. So how do we perceive reality? Many of you may know this, so I'll cover this really quickly. Actually, when we sense something, from the physiological point of view, it's our past. It's already in the past. And when you're looking at faraway stars, for example, you know that the light traveling from the stars, it's not what is actually right now happening with those stars, but what happened with them some time ago that took that light to cover the distance between the stars and our planet, our eye. So we always see the past of the stars, right? And even when you're talking to another person, it also takes few nanoseconds. You see over 3,000 nanoseconds for the light to travel from the person you speak to your eyes, and then it takes few more nanoseconds to be processed in your brain and to deliver the whole picture and what's going on to you. So a scientist, Jason Fisher, found that we perceive reality approximately with 10-15 seconds delay. So it means we don't get the static picture of what is just there right now. We are getting kind of a combined picture of what happened in the last 10-15 seconds. So what he says, it's his citation, what you are seeing at the present moment is not a fresh snapshot of the world, but rather an average of what you've seen in the past 10 to 15 seconds. So this is done for us so that we do not instantly see changing torrent of pictures, shapes, colors. The brain filters information, and to preserve stability of our perception, we see just the trace of the last 15 seconds. And you also know from physiology of eyes that we do have blind spots, and there are good exercises and experiments you can do yourself. There are plenty of them you can find on the internet. But the trick is that our brain interpolates the blind spot on surrounding detail and information from the other eye. So we normally, with both eyes, we kind of finish the picture. We cover the blind spots. We cover the gaps with our brain to see the full picture. And you also know how cinematography works. So actually, we see 24 frames a second, which create an illusion of motion, right? But you can see the picture with the bird and the cage to the right now, and the bird is not in the cage, but if you put it as a plate and start turning fast, you'll get the optical illusion that the bird is actually in the cage, which is not the case. So we are always kind of tricked, and our brain tries to readjust or finish constructing the reality for us with its abilities. And even more than that, the modern technologies allowed us to measure the electrical potentials in the brain, which showed that, say, for example, the centers responsible for decision making are activated at least 7 seconds before we realize that we are going to make this particular decision. So it shows that literally we not only perceive external world with a delay, we perceive our internal decisions, thoughts, intentions with a delay. And I mean, nowadays you can even predict the decisions that people will make before they know what kind of decisions they're going to make. It's already in the brain, it's happening. So it happens somewhere else and much faster. And of course, you know, all these pictures where perception can trick you, and you can see either, you know, a person's face, or you can see animals in the garden. But actually, it's just the matter of your perception and your focus, what you actually see, right? Both are true, you know. On the picture, say, below, I can see a man and a horse and someone sleeping, and then I see an old man at the same time. So both pictures are true. So it just says perceptions define reality. And here we come to the next very important concept of the goal. We mentioned that before, and we have to say that what you see actually filtered by our goals. I'm not sure whether you had time to check Dima's TED Talk, but I won't spend time on running this video right now. You will see that a whole goal filters or defines your attention, your perception. So in this little exercise, the ball is passed, and when you count the passes from one person to the other, you miss the point, you miss the figure of a monkey passing through. It's quite popular attention test, and I suggest you do it later to see how it works for yourself. Basically here, it's important to mention again that it is our goal which sets the filter to what we will see, which has the focus for what we pick from the reality. Here is an interesting chart, which may be confusing, but I'll explain it. For a long time, it was considered that material stimuli from the past define our present behavior. And Ivan Pavlov was Russian famous physiologist. I'm sure you know his experiments and his works about reflex, his famous works with dogs. His students, his followers, Pyotr Anokhin and then later Sudakov, they proved that it's not the past stimuli. Of course, we are connected and shaped by our past. We are not arguing with that. But the trick is that it's the future result, adaptive result, which is driving our perception and behavior. And here I have to explain where the goal comes in. When we talk about future result, we imply this is some manifested in physical reality result, and it's definitely in the future, because when we behave in now, it's not yet there, but it's present there already in the form of a goal. So we have an idea, we have certain parameters of the future result that we have already in now. Right? Our body, on the level of physiology, clearly knows what it needs to adapt to the changing conditions of environment, to the changing conditions of reality. So actually, you may think of it as a driving force behind evolution, because the nature, our physiology, helps us to adapt, to stay alive and evolve. So that's the major idea, of this scheme, this slide. Yes, so we have this ability to anticipate the future events through the goal, which is great, which shows that information travels not just, we get input from the past, we kind of are able to foresee and anticipate the future, which is great. And then talking about goals, we have to remember that actually every single living system, living being, wants to stay healthy, and it means we all want to survive, right? We all want to evolve, and that's the common universal goal for all living systems. And within the system of health management, it's also important to understand that we look at a broader definition of health here, not just lack of diseases. It's a state of optimal or best possible life activity and creative self-actualization with a positive emotional tone. So we talk about actually being not just healthy, but being happy, being self-actualized. And we involve all aspects of health, so just physical, mental, as well as social, as well as economic, and as well as your creative self-actualization. Continuing this, so what's the mechanism behind which helps us to get to this adaptive result? So what nature provides to help us, and this is this key rule, I don't know, golden rule really, of self-regulation. We all know homeostasis. We are constantly readjusting to environment. This self-regulation helps us to stay in balance, in a very simple way to say it. As soon as in the functional systems of the body, deviation of the result of functional system activity from the level determined in normal activity causes all elements of the functional system to work towards its return to optimal level. So we are constantly returned to the optimum level, and that's our physiology. And here I pointed out including feedback. So we constantly are getting feedback as well from nature to saying whether how far we are from the optimal level. We need to get back. We need to get back. So it's pushing us back to our right path. From the point of view of physiology, it's definitely a norm, because all forces of nature are pushing us back to norm, back to balance, back to health. The next important block of ideas about who we are, what is the reality, how can we perceive truly objective reality, and you can probably foresee the answers, and what is our place within this reality. And there will be nothing new for most of you there, that we actually are one. We are constantly interconnected with the environment, and the famous Russian physiologist Sechenov said that it's impossible to separate organism from its environment. Even the definition of organism should include its environment. So we are closely interconnected, and even on the basic physiological level, everyone understands we are breathing this air, we are eating food, and we are interacting, of course, on information levels as well. the truth is that we're exchanging chemicals with, like we're breathing, we exchange atoms with the environment, and we may think that we're still same physical body that we were born. We can see we've changed in size, but the truth is we change or renew our cells every 7 to 10 years. So in reality, you can say that your body is only 7 to 10 years old. So it will take you to the next important point that was well presented by Konstantin Sudakov, that information process is the primary essence of man. So on the physical level, we are continuously changed and renewed due to this exchange with environment. But what is preserved is the information. In modern age of information technologies, I guess there is nothing surprising for us there. We're more or less ready to detach from all materialistic views and accept this idea that actually we are just information. We exist in information matrix, and the truth is this information permeates every possible level of existence, and it's structured in a certain way. There is certain hierarchy of how information goes and flows through us. And there is a very important law. This is the law of holographic unity of all creation, formulated by, again, Konstantin Sudakov, that from the atom to the cosmic level, functional systems of low hierarchy, inactivity of their elements, reflect the activity of functional systems of high hierarchy, uniting them. The latter, in turn, program the activity of subordinate and closed functional systems. So when we talk about functional system, just think of your body. Your body is a collection of various systems of organs and cells, and they all work together to sustain your life, right? So every human being is this functional system. But at the same time, we know that we are also part of social systems, right? We are part of a bigger nature system, right? We are part of a bigger universe. So we are not existing in isolation on our own. We can never be separated from reality because we are so much involved into exchange and interchange with it. So we are also programmed by higher levels of hierarchy within this information matrix. That's what we should remember. And in the context of goal that we just discussed, we should remember that our goal most likely will be programmed by our parents, by society, by environmental circumstances we are placed in. And sometimes when we forget about it, say, we imagine, oh, we are gods, we do everything. It just comes out of our mind, thinking we are separate. It's just our mind creating everything. Oh, the nature will do another disaster, and you'll understand very quickly that there are powers out there much more powerful, higher powers. Call it nature, call it God, but they are out there, and they will always put you back into place. So,
Oksana, can I slow you down a second? And can we go back to that? That's a really wonderful hierarchy. So what's the difference between zoo populational level and social level?
We are talking about communication like a species. It's a level of species, of nature species. It's and the social level is the level when they develop complex social systems. On the level of species, we have families. Also, we have groups of animals and everything like this. But on the level of social, we can create organizations. We can found complex connections between organizations, between over organizational metrics. So it's kind of about transnational systems, about social movements. So it's a next level of communication, but they are connected together. We cannot separate the population at social level. It's just a part of evolutionary process. So it's connected together.
Yeah,
much of what you're talking about is contained within Ken Wilber's integral theory, which you may or may not be familiar with. But this, what you're referring to as holographic, you would call a holarchy. Yeah. And your 4 quadrants that you had there, just by a slight rearrangement, actually fits into the 4 quadrants in his integral theory that you had earlier, where you showed the 4 boxes and the sort of the cross.
What?
It was a while back. That one. Actually, if you were to rearrange this so that you can't see my hands. The self-actualization was in the upper left and the physical was in the upper right. And then you put the social health down the lower left, the economic health over in the lower right. You would have exactly his 4-quadrant system. And so much of what you're saying is already contained in that. And it's interesting to see that the Russians, for whom we have very little contact with here in the West, in terms of their thinking, that there's such a close overlap between what Wilber's talking about and much of the European philosophers been talking about, as well as apparently the Russians as well. So that's beautiful. It's great. The other thing is, that I just wanted to kind of throw out one other point in terms of healing. And I don't know how many, are you familiar with the adverse childhood experiences? What's called the ACE test. This was developed, was observed something like, 20, 30 years ago. But basically what they're looking at and what they have a quiz for, and I send you a link to this, is that almost all diseases and both medical and emotional, arise in early childhood. And they are traceable back to what they call adverse childhood experiences. And until they are addressed and, healed, what we're coming at from a sort of an adult point of view is sort of after the fact. We have to go back to these early childhood adverse experiences to begin to heal the entire system. And of course, that all fits within the context, the social context of the parents and the child as they're growing up, their health care, their nutrition, the experiences their parents have had, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, and so on. So all of these things fit together, and it all begins in this early adverse childhood experiences. And if you have 4 of these experiences, you have a very high probability of developing mental illness, addiction, cancers, heart disease, obesity, morbid obesity, and the list goes on. And this has been traced. This Kaiser Hospital first developed this insight and used something like 17,000 of their patients that they went through their medical history and their emotional and their developmental history. So it's quite a good study. So if you're not familiar with it, I might throw in a link here at some point that Oksana can send it on to everybody.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Yep.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
About this chart, why would psychological be under cosmic and psychological not between homeostatic and behavioral? Because doesn't psychological drive behavioral?
It's just a concept. We can move. It's just a scheme of reality. It's not reality. So that's why we can change it. And the basic idea of this law of the scheme is to show us that we have a different levels of reconnection with each other. So on the one hand, we can show us like a molecular field, like a atomic field. On the next level, we can see the metabolic interactions between our molecules. On the next level, we can see all of us like a cellular interaction. So, for example, I consist from 1,000 of trillions of cells, and part of them are bacterial cells. It's approximately 60%. But all of you also connected from the cells also contains many cells, and I can see our interaction like interaction between cells, like a cellular interaction. So just billions of cells or trillions of cells connected to each other on the level of cells, and I can see the field of cells. On the next level, I can see the field of homeostatic systems, like bodies connections. On the next level, I see interconnections between groups of organisms, and the next level is can be species interconnected with each other, and next. So I can see the networks on the each level of creation. So it depends of point of view, but on the next levels also all universe works. So if I see the level of atomic interactions, it's also about universe interactions, about of galaxies interactions. So all of those type of interactions connected with each other, and all of them connected in the present moment. So it's like informational field which persists in every creation of the universe. So that's a basic idea.
Dima, but who interacts with like psychological and cosmic? What kind of networks you see there, and what kind of interaction? Maybe you could comment.
Everything what we're talking about persists only in informational field, and the informational process reflects the interconnection between information and energy, reflects in the matter. So when we're trying to understand the psychological level, cosmic level of creations, for example, or social levels or population level, we just need to know that it's just a concept in our informational field. It's not reality, because in the reality we have just energetic field, which is kind of pulsated energetic field, and we cannot. We just saw the traces of the particles around of us, but it's not the reality. So when I see pictures on the screen, it's not about original reality, because if I want to observe what is original reality, I must create, for example, special systems like an atomic microscope to see what's going on. But I will see just a quantum field on the deepest manner. So that's why everything what we see is just an energy which regulates by informational processes. So that's why when we are talking about psychological, cosmic level, it's just the concepts of different levels of networks in which we are connected together. So and we can be connected around, for example, ideas. So there are many ideas. For example, the idea of awakeness connected many peoples around the world. For some religions can connect people around the world. Some concepts of being can connect peoples around the world. So that's why it can be a level of connection. But on the cosmic level, we also connected with each other. But it's the highest level of allness for us, because all of us. We know that we are all of us citizens of Earth, of universe, and on those level we cannot change cannot change directly. So we cannot go out from the Earth due to our psychological or due to our knowledge, but we will be in one universe at all. So something like this. I don't know. Did I?
Dima, I think you explained it, because holographic unity explains it. It's a little bit linear or flat presentation of things, which actually...
I think that's the problem. This is linear, hierarchical. That's not what you're talking about. What you're talking about is the interaction of all of these levels, even simultaneously. And the fact that you have different dimensions involved in all of this too. I mean, at a dimension, a quantum dimension, you're talking about energetic relationships which really are not translatable at a Newtonian level. In other words, in the manifestation of actual matter in our four-dimensional, plane, our four-dimensional universe. So, I mean, it's the way this is depicted. It's the picture, which is way off and is very confusing. I think, what we're all kind of dancing around in terms of words, it's just how this is being depicted. And I don't know how you could depict it otherwise unless you, put it on some sort of a plot, a platonic type geometric figure. because what you're talking about are interactions at different levels and at different dimensions,
Yeah.
and they can all be happening simultaneous and are happening simultaneously. That's really the holographic idea or the holographic field. And yeah, this is flat, it's also hierarchical, and it's linear. And none of those really apply. It isn't the hierarchy.
May I just give one example, maybe, that will help to, like, for us, how at least I understand the practical value of it, right? Because this is...
I'm sorry, it's better to show in the present moment, because, for example, we're connected together like a social system, and for example, the goal of cells in my body predicts by our social system goals. So, for example, I say some words now, and my words is a reflection of our own goal to better understanding of ourselves. So that's why, and also my cells predicts the behavior of molecular systems which are part of my cells. So, and on every level, when I'm talking about something now, I reflect all universe in my words, and by the other hand, all moleculars of my body also reflects the social level of our communication. So we are interconnected on the level, on the all levels of reality. So, but in every moment of reality, and every action, now I act like a molecular machines, but also on the different level, I operate like a part of our social system. And so on the next level, I also universal. I also the bane of the universe, of the earth, on the different point of view. So, but now my behavior is in the field of earth. I cannot operate without of earth in this moment. So my behavior predicts by the environment of the earth, and predicts by the environment of the universe, and predicts by the environment of my social systems, my social system now. So I feel what do you do, and how do you feel my words, and this way of interconnection, the dialogue. Our dialogue predicts the behavior of my self on the level of organism, and also on the level of body systems. My body systems operate to better reflect the goal of our social system. That's why that's what we're talking about. Sorry, Oksana.
Dima, would it be a good example to say that when, for example, a mother, sees a child is going to get under the car, she can lift the car. So all her systems inside, all her cells, organs, everything suddenly goes to another level, because on, I don't know, whatever, social probably level, she needs to save her child, right? And you can see in action how probably higher systems in a way dictate what happens to lower systems. Another example could be, when soldiers during war, they didn't have any, they couldn't got any lungs, inflammation sitting on the cold ground, just because they had other goals. Their goal was to fight and survive, and their body was irresponsive to this cold around them. But in normal conditions, people would normally get sick and, have serious lungs inflammation, and it could be lethal. But it saved them during war times, because they had other goals dictated by systems, dictated by another level, which turned out to be more powerful than normally. It changed the conditions. So I agree, we cannot separate one level from the other. It's more just to see for us as learning from this, for me personally as a learning, not just seeing my body as a collection of molecules, cells, organs, working together in symphony to keep me healthy, but it's also me as a part, for example, society, as a cell for the society, which is a bigger organism in a way, which is also functioning. And that's the problem, because we stop seeing ourselves as that. We see us as very, very separate and disconnected from other higher levels thinking I'm the boss on every level, full stop, which is not true, We are like cells, and that's why physiology gives us some good examples of how you can relate, communicate with each other, so you can get very good results, like how many neurons are working in the brain to process information and come out with what it comes out, how you can organize like thousands and thousands and thousands of people so they can very efficiently do their work together. Look at the brain neurons. There will be the answers. Am I right?
I think much of what you're mentioning or what you're talking about in the theory of holarchy is that in a holarchy, each level transcends and includes the next level.
Yeah.
So if you start with, say, subatomic particles, atoms transcend and include the subatomic. The molecular transcends and includes the atomic, and so on right up through all of our physiological systems, social systems, and cosmological systems. So it's the idea that it's a type of transcending and including in the next level.
Yeah, I think you just summarized it really well.
That's Ken Wilber. That's definitely
Yes.
Ken Wilber.
Yes. I like him very much, and we know about each other.
Yeah. So, I mean, we won't contradict it. Most likely you'll see the correlation. You see, we are talking about same things, approaching them from another angle, right? But talking about the same things. So
Everything about the process of dialogue, because when we understand that the dialogue on different levels is most important concept to be healthy, so we can rediscover the dialogue on the next level. So, and it's everything about the same. So we have just same physiology everywhere. So that's why it's the same processes, same laws everywhere. But we talk about it on different language. But it's also important because if we want to know the whole picture, we need to use a different language, and 7 billion people around the world everybody have their own language, so their original language. Okay,
so thank you, Dima. I think we all do understand that on the level of physiology, on the level of life, we all are subject to the same laws, same physiological language, if you like. However we talk about it when we talk. Where do the problems come from? Here I'll go back to this wonderful scheme which explains how we are driven. And let me remind you that we are not just driven, it's not material stimuli from the past, because that would be very predictable if everything would just go straight from the past, like where you would be in the present. But it's our anticipation of the future result, the information about the future result, the parameters that we kind of have somewhere, and we have it as goal in the present moment that drives our behavior. Right? And here you can actually see that, again, this scheme is also very linear and flat. I'm sorry for that. That's the only way we can present ideas here. But the main message here is that it is important to stay focused about your true goal, where you want to be. And say, within the system of health management, we talk about health. Right? Health, not just physical, on a broader sense. You may talk about health of your families, health of your relationships, health of your business. So we are talking about health. And to stay healthy, we need to have healthy goals, right? Because goal drives our perception and behavior, and what we see, what stimuli we pick up from the universe, from reality, will depend on our focus, what goal we have in mind, what result we would like to achieve, right? And without this focus, without this goal, and without healthy goal, which is also very important, you wouldn't get there. Why I mention healthy goal? Because I also mentioned that health, happiness, this balance, evolution is actually a common goal for all living systems, for every living being. Everyone wants to survive, so everyone wants to stay healthy. And the condition for this health is remembering about what we were talking about before. So where problems come from, when we think we are separate. as soon as we start separating, and as soon as we think that we are not connected with any of the higher systems, it's just our mind running the show for itself, and our mind usually carries the information about the past stimuli, so it's just stuffed by some model of reality, some idea of reality from the past. And when it stops receiving the signal, stop receiving the information, stop being receptive of what's going on, we get fully disconnected, and this creates all sorts of problems, because we suddenly find ourselves in a situation where we think, no, I disagree with this reality. It should be different. The world should be different towards me. These people should be different. They should behave differently towards me. And then as soon as you enter, kind of impose your expectations, your idea of the world, of how it should be, to this reality, you will receive feedback. You may not be quite right, because we should remember we are just on our level, and we have limited perspective in this whole information matrix hierarchy, what is truly going on. And we may also be disconnected from our own senses. We may be conditioned even to disconnect from our own senses by, our parents. We were trained to please and betray, and so to be worthy, to be wealthy, we have a list of conditions that we need to fulfill to get there. And so the major problem actually happens when we get stuck with our past, and instead of having a true goal coming from the future, we just keep running the loop from this past, trying to adjust or adapt the reality towards us, to dictate the reality the way we expect it to be, to dictate other people. And this, of course, causes, as I said, lots of fighting. It causes lots of conflict. It causes lots of negative emotions. And of course, we don't like these negative emotions. We think they shouldn't be part of my reality. Ideal world shouldn't include me being negative, me feeling bad, me feeling guilty. So we suppress these emotions. And the cycle, it's a vicious cycle which goes further. We feel isolated. We feel we need to prove our righteousness, to defend our position, say everyone is wrong, the world is not fair, I can't be happy in this world. And it's a really vicious cycle that takes us to eventually disconnects us from higher systems who supply us with, not just information, it's just also energy for our future. Result for adaptation, for self-actualization, we deprive ourselves of all these things and get sick. We are stressed, we are anxious. It manifests on physical level, it manifests in our relationships because we hard to find the connection with other people, and that's where we are. So basically the major problem, the major origin of the problems is in separation and disconnection, and we are not synchronized with reality. We lost this grip with reality, and it's no surprise why we kind of feel worse and worse, and we end up in addictions and trying to reconcile and defend ourselves. So that's where we are.
It's origin of violence in our life. When we are trying to force the reality and to make it something different, we are lost connection, and we lost the dialogue with the reality. We just want to predict reality, but the reality predicts us, and its main idea, it's about dialogue. Because of the higher levels, it's not about dictate of higher.
So I understand, Dima, it's like he's talking about the flow of information, like we talk about the flow of energy and information when we talk about awakened mind. He's talking about this flow and dialogue of us and others, because we may think of obligations as something that it's something fixed, like in something cut in stone, but actually our obligations are just our agreements with other people. So if we learn to communicate properly, honestly, we can always rearrange our agreements with other people at any moment. We are not in prison, right? We can fulfill our major obligations, whatever, if we promised, but then nothing is stopping us from just communicating how we feel about it, that the whole life has changed since that moment where we thought that's what we wanted to do, these were the conditions that we were happy to work for. I mean, you can always change that. So it's nothing wrong. It's more about this ability to recognize your feelings, recognize the feedback from reality. It's coming, the message coming may say something is going wrong, you know, the feedback message. It's not the result that you wanted. It's absolutely fine to open up and communicate honestly without trying to, you know, fight and push and say it should be my way only. No, it's a way of interaction and communication, and that's how it works in physiology. You know, our cells find the agreement. If they don't find the agreement, we end up with cancer and all other stuff, you know, and we know where we are.
I think we all get it.
Yes,
now,
great.
All right, how do you rectify it? I mean,
Yes.
we still haven't gotten to the system, and we got 80% of the world that is operating.
So the next step
all right,
is about,
let's move it.
yeah. So I was talking about this, how we can sustain this flow, make sure we are with the flow, right? We should remember that we should stop fighting, right? Because we should stop our unacceptance and saying, you should be this, you should be that. And these are ideas most likely coming from our past, right? Nobody should be a certain way to us, like we shouldn't be a certain way to others. If we like each other and we manage to have common goals, that's great. We'll work toward common goals. If we don't have common goals, we really have nothing to do with each other. We better go and do something else with other people with whom we do have common goals. So here we talk about stop fighting. And remember that we just have to accept what is, because sensory present is our past. Before we even know, like the film is already over, the movie is over, and or the train is gone already, and you're trying to catch up with the train that's far away already. And like, what's the purpose of fighting and struggling? And no purpose there. So we have to learn to accept. It's very hard because we all want things to be our way. We're quite stubborn in our minds and egos. And another thing, when we sit in this position of unacceptance, we also tend to be manipulative and dishonest. So we don't see reality. We don't have this grip with reality. We're lost synchronization. So we are full of distortions. Our mind has these pictures that blur the true picture of what's going on. And we have to be dishonest. We start lying and pretending we are this, pretending we are that, trying to make ourselves fit in some working place that we were not meant to be at all. But that's how we were shaped. That's how society dictated. You have to be a good businessman, and you are not. You can't be an artist. So we have all these kind of things that we need to let go of and learn to accept. Learn even to accept our own distortions, because we are not perfect. Learn to accept our own negative emotions, understanding this is just feedback from reality trying to self-regulate and push us on the right path. There is nothing wrong there. But unfortunately, we are not perfect. We can't avoid even distortions. We find ourselves in not very comfortable and pleasant relationships, communications, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. We just accept that. We sit with our feelings. We sit with ourselves. So disconnection, when we go back, it's somewhere we are just stuck on our behavioral level. We just disconnect from other levels. We stop sensing. Dishonesty is critical, because honesty implies 100% accuracy of communication. So imagine if the signal from your brain doesn't reach your muscle, the set of information traveling, the message is screwed up along the way, your muscle will not work properly. So it's just no way you will respond. You will end up with illness. And that's what happens when we lie in normal life or distort information. It just comes back to us. Because we lost this information equivalence. It comes back in excessive negative feedback and all kinds of symptoms. It comes back as stress. So it makes our life more difficult, because it's very hard to sustain stress. It's a big distortion. It's like artificial world you're trying to sustain. It takes lots of energy of yours, lots of health of yours. And there were lots of research done about honesty, that even like reducing of small everyday lies can take your health to another level, help you to feel better. So that's something to think about. And then here we come to solution. And here we'll talk about practice of silence finally. So we want to remind you, we have to remember about goal, right? Goal means we set and focus on healthy goal. And we remember that it's non-violent goal because every living being wants to be healthy and survive. Every living being on earth. And this healthy goal is always in the present. So it should instantly change our perception. Say, when we find ourselves in conflict with someone, you should remind yourself, do I really want to fight? Is fighting my goal? Or do I want to come to a certain agreement? Or do I want to come to a certain result? And I better remind myself and the other person, hey, we have common goal. We want to get to that result. And if we, for example, if we both want to be healthy, we better don't commit violence against each other, including some, psychological or mental violence with trying to push ideas and I'm right and you are wrong. And it implies we listen, we interact, we open up, we do our best to listen and sustain this healthy perception. So then acceptance, we listen and we accept what we are. We let go of obligation, so we stop expecting the world to be different. We stop fighting with the past because it's ridiculous. We stay honest. We learn to connect with our feelings, to just say how we see things, how they are. That's how I feel. That's my reality in the moment, because all the mental concepts, they'll take you away, but your senses, they're closest to now, closest to reality, really. The best indicators, the best feedback you can rely on. So you learn to connect with your feelings and you learn to honestly communicate from keeping in mind common goals. So a goal, let's remind, it's not only drives our perception and behavior, the goal is the kind of organizations are built around the goals, right? Systems are built around the goals to get certain functional goals, because that's when we mention physiology, functional systems, right? We imply that the system forming factor is a goal or future result, that all the members who enter the system, they think about this future result, they're focused on the result, and that's why they come together. And that's why, for example, when, say, a young family is formed, yes, they have, like a woman may have the only idea, I just want a child, and then as she had a child, the system breaks up because there was no other goal, there was no evolution, it's just the end of it, it's complete, full stop, nothing else. So you have to remember, goals may change, they may be big and small, yeah, and the greatest, biggest goal for everyone is, of course, to stay healthy and survive. So it means we shouldn't do harm to each other, we shouldn't be violent. But you can see how it all works on different levels. And then, of course, remembering the last point here, high systems, we become much more powerful with a group of people who support our values, who are open for these healthy goals and healthy communication. So sometimes it's really difficult if you're caught up in isolation in all sorts of problems. That's why we have, all these anonymous alcoholic groups and other groups, because people come with same goal. And when they come together, it's much easier to get there. But there are certain conditions, like we discussed above this, acceptance, obligation-free communication, and common goals that should be there to make the whole thing work for everyone. So when we talk about practice of silence, we're talking about synchronizing with this reality. So now that we got on another bump, we received some feedback, and we need to sit and find the balance back, right? We need to find the true goals. We are in conflict with someone, and instead of keeping fighting, it's better to kind of find some quiet space, find some time, and just go there and look what's going on inside of you. What are your true goals? Do you really want to keep fighting? Do you want to keep proving your righteousness, or you want to losing your health along the way, by the way, or you want to sustain your organism on healthy level, right? You want to your organism to restore its wholeness, to restore its self-regulatory function, to push back regeneration processes. So that's what Dima was talking about, because he literally had people with serious diseases who helped their bodies regenerate, I don't know, improve the number of red blood cells just by doing practice of silence, because they learned these principles and they started it doing every day, helping their body get back to self-regulation. And of course, if we don't do practice of silence, we stop synchronizing, we further get from real picture, we lose this grip. It's like the car, it doesn't have any connection grip with the surface, and you go like on the ice. The more unacceptance you have, the less context with people you have, less context with your own feelings you have, and it's just a loop that we already, looked through and described. And the key things to remember here, first of all, when we run along the problem, distortion, right? The main thing is we need to see these distortions, to recognize them, and kind of this mindful recognition of these distortions is healing in itself. And you don't really need to do much. You need to find some time, quiet space, and remember about your healthy goal. Set a healthy goal. Remind yourself. Set the right focus for the whole exercise. Many people ask, are there any special rules? Because they are so, used to be conditioned by external world. Shall I sit in a certain position? Shall I do this? Can I move? Can I blink my eye? Really, there are no rules. There is no right way, because as soon as we start talking about certain position, it will be kind of obligation. If someone can do it while walking in the forest, no problem. If you can do it while, I don't know, swimming in the ocean, do it while swimming in the ocean. And you can do it while dancing, just connecting with yourself with healthy goals and listening. Do it while dancing. So there is no critical rule. And also, when should I do that? How long should I do that? And when you realize the need, whenever you need, you may do it regularly if you have serious health problems and it helped others. And I know that, lots of stories from Dima's patients. And you can do it just whenever you need it most. So it's, remember, it's obligation-free time, because we are so caught up in this world. We have to do this, we have to do that, we are, we are parents, we are employees, we are involved in all kinds of roles and relationships. So you can give yourself a break, and literally, if you take 10-15 minutes out of any busy day, just to say, this 15 minutes, I'm absolutely free, I'm with myself. I am looking inside and I see what distortions I have. I see what feelings have built up, because usually we're even so busy, we run away from our feelings, we suppress them, we let them come up through the surface, we let this information just flow, pass through us. We don't block it, we don't suppress it. Whatever comes up, even if it's negative, it's something that needs to be released. We shouldn't block and just keep it suppressed, keep it within us, in our body, just do harm. So all that will help you to restore this natural healing mechanism, restore the flow, restore self-regulation and regenerations. And the last thing, this practice works best. So it's most efficient when you do it in a group of like-minded people who share healthy goals and agree on the principles of acceptance or obligation-free communication and honesty. We are not perfect again, and from my example I can say it's very good when you again may be caught up in your mind trying to pretend and be someone else. In a group with honest communication, some other people will instantly kind of point that you are not quite honest to yourself. You are again trying to distort the reality, run away from yourself, be someone else. People, who are on this path and develop who are sensitive to themselves are ready to open up, they start feeling dishonesty in a very, very sharp way. And they'll help you. They're part of this environment, honestly, that will help you to get back. It's like part of same self-regulation in a way on a social level, just trying to push you back to your truth. But it
You
should
mean
be,
like mirroring?
yeah. In a way, just helping you. And then also, you know that when people want to learn certain skills or overcome certain problems, it's always better when you do it with other people, because you think, oh, I'm the only one with this problem. I'm the only one afraid to do public speeches. I'm the only one afraid to start new business. And then you find, oh, great, I'm not the only one. Others have similar fears, similar problems, and that's what it is. So it's highly recommended to share your feelings, experiences with such a group after practice of silence. So basically, this is the end of my presentation. And I don't see whether Dima is with us or Dima is back. Dima says that his time limit is over, unfortunately. So Dima, you're welcome to say a few words.
I'm happy to connect it with you, and I hope that we can reconnect the world in general, because we have a lot of problems around the world, and people want to fight with each other. But we observe that we have a problems really, and we on the first stage we need to accept that we really have ourselves have a problem. So, but on the general sense, we don't have a problem, because we can make an open dialogue, and we can listen to each other, and we can share it with others, and there is no some kind of newest knowledge of some kind of very, very new. We don't listen something new, something opposite. So it's everything about non-violence, about acceptance, about meditation, about of honesty on all levels, about integrity, about it's a kind of reinventing of ourselves. So it's not about something differently new, and it's about open dialogue, it's about groups, about sharing circles, about of movement to reconnect to ourselves. So I hope that we can do something together, and I can help you to share your knowledge and your opinion and your point of view to other people, and I hope that you also can help us to do it. So I happy person to be with you and to share with you this moment of my life, and I should go. Thank you very much, Oksana. I thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dima. Thanks.
Thank you, Dima.
Thank you very much, Dima. Thank you. Thank you.
So, anyone wants to add, comment, or just say something what you learned today, if there was anything new at all? But it's mainly just a way you look at things, right? You may know most of it, but it's said when you can't see it as a system, you can't put it all together. That's what I liked about this. It kind of gives you a system. It may be, of course, a bit flattened. It's still another concept, but it still gives you orientation. It gives you the direction. It gives you the keys or landmarks in our language. We like this word too. What to be focused on, you know, what we are looking for, not to get lost, and of course, how to keep all the channels open and not just be healthy, but also be happy. Be kind of fulfill our mission on earth, self-actualize, realize our creative potential.
I was just going to add in that in terms of silence, in terms of meditation, this is a new study I just saw, I think came out of Sweden. Maybe you saw it already. But they have used MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and compared it in quite extensively with CBT. And they found that 12 weeks of, or 8 weeks of MBSR was the equivalent of the CBT in terms of healing depression, anxiety, and you name it, whatever CBT is good for.
What is CBT? What
and
is
meditating.
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, which is sort of the gold standard for a lot of things these days in terms of therapy. So now they've compared the just mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is basically mindfulness with some yoga, is as good in 8 weeks as doing 8 weeks of CBT in terms of healing all of these various psychological, emotional problems that people have. So sitting quietly, meditating.
It's also very good for depression. They've compared it to standard medication regimens as well as CBT
Exactly.
plus medication.
Yeah.
And mindfulness-based treatment of depression is also equally as good. And these are both recognized now as evidence-based. There are enough studies, well-done studies, controlled studies to show that mindfulness training is very, very effective for a lot of mental health issues regarding anxiety and depression in particular.
And now we also have some evidence-based studies, a fairly large amount of them now, on EFT, showing that EFT creates a faster resolution of these issues than CBT. So there's that overlap between mindfulness, CBT, and the EFT as well, emotional freedom.
I haven't seen that recently, but I actually wrote the summaries for the national website for both the evidence-based mindfulness, stress reduction, mindfulness training, as well as mindfulness for depression. And EFT did not actually get in for review because they didn't have randomized clinical control studies yet. So
I know that was fairly early on, and
right now I haven't
that
been.
material is, I think, now available. They now have some multiple studies, and the studies are also, one of them is quite good in terms of memory reconsolidation. And EFT, and how the two of them work together, how EFT is actually enhancing or using memory consolidation, and has been from the very beginning, without even actually realizing what they're doing, as most therapists aren't, until this research came out recently. So that's interesting, that you had actually written that material. So you might want to go back and look at some of the new, well, I don't know whether it's published or not.
It was being conducted when this was a couple years ago, so it might now be out in print.
I could send you some material from some of the people that have been doing the research now, so you might be interested in that.
Okay. No, I think it's a very important concept, periods of silence, periods of going within yourself, and we don't allow that kind of time. And I think my take-home message from this whole thing is you got to make the time. It's not about allowing it. It's not an option anymore. We need these breaks. We need these breaks to be with ourselves internally, to kind of readjust ourselves to a reality again, because we are being bombarded on all sides by all sorts of propaganda and everything else, all sorts of noise. And if we don't get away, take ourselves, withdraw from all that noise to recenter ourselves, we get skewed. We just keep skewing ourselves. And we're at a point in history for humanity that we can't afford to skew much more, or we're just not going to be here. So it is important if each of us, and particularly because we're multitasking all the time, and again, the brain isn't structured for the multitasking, to bring yourself out of that context and really get yourself recentered and focused on a single goal that is right and healthy for you, and then also bring in other like people. I would go easy on the groups. Yes, this is more effective in groups, but that just reinforces tribalism, and we're trying to get away from that. We want to be accepting of each other. I mean, the tribes are warring against each other. We're looking at it across our world. And so we really do have to be accepting of each other. Even if those views are very disparate, we've got to find common ground around. Even if that goal is simply that we're all in this boat called humanity together, and we're either going to sink or swim together. We've got to come to some sort of superordinate goal. There is a lot of psychologies, a lot of really good work done on getting groups to recognize a goal beyond either individual group. When you get the parties involved to recognize that there's a superordinate goal that will preserve all of them and is in everybody's best interest, they will all work together, even if they're on opposite sides, all right? And we see that with changing allies and changing this, changing that. When it behooves those groups, there's a superordinate goal that is going to ensure the survival of everybody, they'll actually work towards the goal, and they'll work together. And I think that came through very clearly too. You know, that's why I'm kind of leery about, you know, in the groups of like-minded people, because it's not the like-minded people, it's getting to the ones who aren't so like-minded that we really have to work towards too. So, but I think personal time, you're absolutely right on. And Dmitry and Oksana, that system, yes, we definitely need to make time for this down. I really call it periods of downtime.
Yep.
I just sent a link for the adult childhood experiences, so you can look that up and review that, because I think that's really at the core of much of what you're talking about in terms of healing. We have to start there. We have to start with what people experienced as children and how to reverse that so that they don't perpetuate it with their own children.
Yeah, and thank you, Gary. I will share that, and I will add a couple of other links on free publications on theory of functional systems. They're not long, but if people are really interested, they just can read a couple of articles at least that were translated into English. And they give the basic concepts again with good examples from physiology on a deeper level that I was presenting today. And responding back to Deborah, I really like how, Deborah, you managed to summarize things and put them together. But what about we have one health group? Because it's universal, as I said, to every living being. Like every form of life wants to survive.
Yeah, but they have to believe that their health is tied to this. That's the connection. They have to believe that that's what their health is tied to. And you have too many people who just don't believe that. And yeah, and it's all about flow. I mean, in all the different traditions, they talk about energetic flow. Once you stop it someplace, it gets stuck and it becomes illness. And this is really common across all sorts of philosophies and all around the world, which I find very interesting too, and reinforces it as a principle when, you know, it is something that is that reproducible all around the world. And yeah, but you got to get people to believe this. And right now, people don't believe, they're not making these kinds of connections, and they get sicker and sicker and sicker, and, you know, bigger and bigger and bigger, and they don't understand why. And it's, again, attributing everything to external forces, blaming everything, but looking with yourself to work on yourself.
Because of this, we wind up with Trump as president.
Yeah. You got it. I mean, you know, Gary, I hope we have something left when this is over. So, but I really believe by the beginning of 2019 it will be. I really think.
I hope so.
At least some of it, but you know, there could be an awful lot of damage that's already created by.
Oh, it's going to take a lot of damage control, believe me.
Yeah. So anyway. But, and the whole idea about childhood and having such an influence on adulthood, I absolutely agree. But I also think that that's a very difficult problem, because there again, not only do you have to recognize it, but then you have to in some way repair whatever damage has occurred. And that too can take you off track if you spend too much time. I mean, you know. psychoanalysis was a lot about, spending time putting everything back together again, right? Well, you can waste a lot of time that way too, but at least if we recognize it, if we bring it to the surface, it's no longer shadow and in the unconscious where it can erupt at very inappropriate times.
So I suggest maybe we should start educating more people about basic principles of physiology. Just saying that's how, muscles wouldn't work if you keep lying. So if you expect your relationships to work, well, you keep lying, okay, good luck, but it kind of contradicts the basic laws of life. That's how it works on at least the level of physiology, and how you can argue with that. You can hardly argue.
Yeah, but people have to see the negative consequences of lying and not having integrity, and there are not enough people seeing the negative consequences, all right? I mean, they get richer and richer and richer, and they don't see negative consequences, and I think there's that kind of a disconnect where, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I understand. You need to go through enough degree of suffering just to open up, and usually when you touch the bottom and you feel that I have nowhere else to go, it can't be worse, it can't get worse, that's when the first crack is there.
Absolutely.
To squeeze some right information in. And that's why Dima also, when he talks to people, he just says, if you don't have a need, if you don't feel a need to learn this, you haven't realized you kind of have a problem that you are looking to solve, you are free to go and do other things. So I won't push it into your mouth, into your brain. No problem with me. It's only when you recognize the need, and that's where you can start, looking and really being ready for solutions. But if you just keep on deceiving yourself, others, and running the show, I understand all that.
Do that. And I think, when people have gotten very sick and terminal illnesses, and I can speak from my personal experience, all of a sudden it's a game changer. And you take steps, and you overnight will change your life. But until something like that, you need some sort of a wake-up call, some sort of an epiphany that tells you there's a problem, now I need to solve it. And we don't see a lot of that going on. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's
just to take a moment to get more esoteric here. Going back to your original, the beginning of this about how long it takes to perceive reality. This was recognized by the Buddhists and by the Ayurvedic or Vedic communities several thousand years ago. And in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the 33rd Sutra of the 4th Pada describes this exactly, this moment of time that it takes to perceive reality, and how if you spend a lot of time meditating, that your ability to perceive reality becomes shorter and shorter and shorter, so that eventually you're actually perceiving the actual reality as it occurs, rather than something that has taken 50 milliseconds or 100 milliseconds or 10 seconds to put together to perceive. And it's also the Buddhist theory, what's called the theory of instantaneous being, which is quite complex, but and contained in a number of different sutras. But that sort of short period of time of perceiving reality was recognized by people who spent a lot of time meditating. And we've seen in research now that people who've spent a lot of time meditating, they actually perceive reality more quickly than your average person. And which you probably know, I'm probably talking to the choir here, but you guys are, have seen this before. So if we could get these messages across somehow, to the public, not as fake news, but as reality, this is the way things are, maybe we could begin changing things. And I'm wondering how, Judith, have you had thoughts about how to tie all of this together, Oksana, into training with mindfulness, with the awakened mind training? Because I'm already introducing these ideas and what I'm doing, and I don't know if anybody else is kind of going down this same path.
Well, there are some awakened mind practitioners and trainees who are specializing in mindfulness, and some even who are authorities on it.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, and perhaps I speak out of ignorance, but my impression is that awakened mind training is mindfulness.
Yeah.
That, you know, we're saying turn on your inner awareness and keep it on all the time, increase your self-awareness, increase your self-regulation, so that you are simultaneously aware of past, present, and future, so that you are multidimensionally connected with your levels of intellect and intuition and instinct, and all of and subtle energies, and that includes the realm of subtle energies. So that and I really love this Mind and Life Institute sponsored study with, I think it was Richard Davidson and some other people, where they found that these Buddhist monks, as advanced meditators, were able to pick up very tiny nuances in people's expressions that nobody else saw. So it's like everybody else with their very rapidly shifting attentions, which changes every 6 seconds. People lose their focus. You know, people come in and out of awareness. They listen to a few words, and they listen to a few words, and they pick up reality in discrete bits. But people who have that sustained awareness and that continuity of consciousness, they're the ones that are able to pick up reality on the level of subtle energies and understand this holographic flow of information and say, oh, well, I just made a mistake on this level, and I made a mistake on this level, and so where does that relate, you know, maybe to my genetics, or where does that relate to my lack of homeostasis, and do the corrections then, because they have the focal abilities. And I get that out of awakened mind meditation. Mindfulness to me is a different system, but essentially the same.
It's about getting
that's
to the same place.
That's exactly what I am getting at. What you're saying, from what I hear, what you're articulating is the continuity of awareness through the different states, physiological states, and the different content that we may experience in those different physiological states. That is the central thread that connects all of it. Because I've experienced many different altered states of consciousness, and it is actually the awareness that has been the thread that connected all of those different states together. Without that, I'm not there. No one's there. If you don't have that continuity of awareness, and it's a training and meditation to be able to hold that awareness in all states. And so the Buddhist concept of moving through lucid dreaming and all of the dream yogas is so that you can maintain that thread of awareness when you die. And you go into the bardos.
The diamond, that's what they call the diamond body, isn't it?
Yes.
So you die and your spirit is so pure by then, and so not dense, but rather more in your light body, that you die and you take your awareness with you.
Yes.
And you're able to reproject. I think that's what, speaking of Easter, materialization, dematerialization, and then rematerialization is all about.
Yeah, and they say you can maintain that
planes, right?
Yeah, if you can maintain that continuity of awareness, then enlightenment is instantaneous on death.
Yeah,
which is nice.
And see, I think awakened mind training does all of that.
Yeah.
Because it's taken you into your subconscious, it's taken you into your unconscious, where all your stuff is buried, where where the contradictions reside, and out of which they arise into the life you live. And it's just a series. And speaking of holograms, to me, it's just a series of mirrors operating on different dimensions and reflecting. Not really mirrors, but mirrors, but also lenses. Just a lens. That on the cosmic level, you have this essence, and you're just projecting all the way down into the genetic, and your genetic is projecting all the way back up to the cosmic. And, I think awakened mind meditation accesses all those different levels so that you can find the contradictions and the blocks
But I think there are many ways to that awareness. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, that they all end up in the same place, but there are different ways of getting there. And for different individuals, one way will work perhaps better than another, or will be more resonant with that person than another, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Sure.
And the continuity of the awareness, yes, the key, but it's more than that, because all those levels that we now articulate as separate, because that's really what we're doing. We're articulating. They're automatic. They're instantaneous. They're all fused together. And they just happen. And that, I think, is where, we're all striving to go, where we want to be. And yes, in experienced meditators, this is, and certainly in the monks who have been doing it, and the sages, I mean, that's their goal.
We have to meet each person at their developmental level.
Yes.
Whatever
and speaking of Jesus again, that was the power of the whole Jesus iconography, is to meet people wherever they are.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the trouble with hierarchies, is because people, if you slice reality into too many levels, then you go, oh, well, he's here, and then this spiritual egotism gets involved. So
there's differences in hierarchies, and as Deborah knows, the concept in Wilber's is that of holarchy, in which it's not the same as creating these, let's say, separation states of hierarchies. They are all inclusive.
Yep.
And they're so that the holarchies include everything. They just go through different stages. So it's a developmental holarchy. Rather than a pyramidal sort of hierarchy, or a power hierarchy, however you want to call it.
Ken Wilber was very much influenced by developmental psychology. And if you look into, and certainly the whole idea of self-actualization and Maslow, that's all developmental psychology. And so his hierarchies are, incorporating and then going to another level. But all levels are incorporated, all the, earlier levels, let's say, are incorporated in different levels of development. And that's really where that's coming from. So I think that on the same line, I think Dmitry and what you've been talking about, Oksana, this whole model is more along that developmental, evolutionary type of growth. I guess growth would be the best way. And it's experiential growth. You've got to actually experience these stages in order to go through them and go to another, a more mature level, shall we say. But that still brings in this hierarchy, and people tend to, I'm up here and you're down here or in the middle. And that's just not.
Yeah, I'm more enlightened than you are.
That's just not productive. That's not going to get us very far.
I just think about it as, as evolution, and we are very prejudiced, right? It's just part of normal growth, and that you can't say you're better than the child because he can't walk yet, and you say, hey, you are disabled, you can't walk yet. No, he's just on his stage of evolution. He's learning to walk, and at some point in time you were there. So So it's kind of, I understand people are very prejudiced and they have very limited perspective of, you know, in time and space, we have just a slice of reality, just a fragment. And we need to keep, you know, transcending that with our consciousness, just go beyond that and see beyond that. So that it's just normal for a child not to walk at certain stage of his development. It's normal to go through some mistakes and learn from them. It's part of learning. It's part of evolution. And whether you can consider someone on a, like, further steps or further stages in evolution, are they superior? In a way they are, but it's their responsibility, I think, as well, to see everyone who is beyond and help them to follow. And it's just, there shouldn't be any really this egoistic stuff. And the last thing I really want to say, maybe to sum up and finish this webinar, that, I mean, as long as we all understand that and we are ready to evolve and transcend and we are open, we are looking for our you know, different tools, different ways, which is different paths. But as long as we are working on that, as long as we are doing that, it's fine. And again, whatever language we choose, is it the language of, you know, brainwaves? Is it the language of neurofeedback that helps us to get there? That's one thing. I can say in Dima's case, he attracted lots of young Russians who cannot accept any religion. Buddhism is not that popular in Russia, unfortunately. It's getting more popular. But, you know, when you don't believe in anything in our modern society, the science, the language of science is the one that people are ready to listen, and that helps them to open up and recognize certain things. But again, when they're ready, right? When they're ready to listen this, when they're interested, when they recognize their needs and problems. Not before, because they'll just start arguing and fighting or find it boring. But when they need, they find the answers through this scientific language. And I don't really care. That's why I thought we could see everyone picked up the parallels, mindfulness, awareness, whatever you take. And of course, the brain waves, the mind mirror, awakened mind, it will follow the laws of physiology. We can't argue or conflict with them. We just follow them and we register the changes. The electrical change in the brain will register all the changes in your physiology.
And when we start talking about optimizing brain function, then we're talking about something that these people can understand. And I know Judith has probably seen this in all of the workshops that we've had with Anna and individually. What attracts a lot of, particularly men, is the scientific language. We're talking about brain waves, you know, oh, well, you know, we're going to measure brain waves, so this must be real, you know, so, okay.
It helps.
We'll go down that road.
It helps a lot. I mean, certain category of people who don't believe in anything anymore, right? They just may be insensitive enough, not yet there, whatever they're, you know, shaped and made. But yes, scientific language is quite convincing, especially when you talk about, you know, very physical realm of physiology. It's hard to argue something tangible, something measurable.
You know, that's why it's so hard to write for like the website and write articles, because you really have to, you're speaking to physiology, psychology, spirituality, and you have to speak to all those different levels at the same time. And so I really prefer just to speak in the language of energy. And I don't know if this is what I got out of this today, or this is what my preconceptions have led me to draw out of this, or I projected on it. But it seemed to me that, that the value in his system is that that we're changing living dynamic systems, and the energy that we put out, the behaviors that we express, the relationships that we form, on the psychological level, I think what he was saying was the energy of a group psyche before this cosmic level. That's all changing, and that's all flowing according to what we're composed of at any given moment. And therefore, there is no superiority. You can't be superior because you're a human being. Your psyche's changing according to what's happening in your family, what's coming at you with your work, how stressed out you are, how well you are. How can you possibly be superior to anybody else? Because in the holographic model, as I understand it, everything is contained within you. You contain everything. Everyone else is, and therefore you have the potential to meet with anybody else on any level, no matter who they are, no matter where they are. And that's the beauty of the system, is that there doesn't have to be any separation or any exclusion, because it's just one field of energy that we're changing within and connecting with others on the basis of where we are. And so it's just kind of all good. We just have to be aware.
Donna's so good about whoever's brainwave she's looking at. She's so positive about everything that's happened to them, and she says, "Oh, I've just fallen in love with your brainwaves." That's the one thing she always says. "Oh, I've fallen in love with you. I've seen your brainwaves, and I've fallen in love with your brainwaves." So the people get really positive feedback, and I really think that helps them to begin to look at how their brainwaves are, or how their brain is functioning, and what they need to do to change. But I think that's really what we need to do, is we have to kind of fall in love with each other's brainwaves.
And again, it's not about anything else in this world. We keep coming back to it in webinar after webinar, and it just comes back to love, love, love.
Unconditional love, full acceptance. Yes. It's all about that.
But there's such a disconnect with the reality of our world. All right. I mean, we're the choir. We're preaching to each other.
Yeah.
This has to be disseminated. This has to have a way of making it into the mainstream. And it's getting there in dribs and drabs and little here and little there. And, all good, but we need to keep that in mind. And so regardless of what system it is, what's going to get out there? And any of these systems, if they get out there, that's a good thing. And I think that's really where the efforts are now. Yeah, I mean, sure, it's love and compassion, but I mean,
I've been preaching that for a few years now, so.
No, I can say that Dima's system covered like millions of Russian speakers through all these years,
Really?
about 5-6 years, because
Okay.
Russia is a very big country, and he has Russian speakers like me, involved from other countries who just join the system because they feel that just knowing this may change your reality and transform your reality. Just knowing these principles, just the knowledge, right? And you'll take the right conclusions for yourself and lessons to yourself. And when you need to practice, you will practice because you already got the keys, the tool set, along with other tools that you may use.
Yes. I said, yes, it is getting a little late for me, but I am awake. Awake again.
Awake, alive, alert, awake, alive, alert, and enthusiastic.
Okay, I suggest we finish here now. Thank you, everyone, for participation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Oksana.
Thank you very much, Oksana.
I've noticed that a lot of times it's these tail end conversations we have.
Yeah.
The back end of these webinars are really interesting. You could somehow put those up at the front.
No, you can't. You need to be charged. We are building up the energy during someone speaking, and then we just give it all back.
Maybe we could organize it. Here's my Virgo again. Poor Capricorn and Virgo. I don't know how I stand myself, but you could say 1, hello, 2, the principles, 3, the solution, 4, the crescendo. All right, happy holiday, happy Easter to you. Happy
Merry Easter.
Everybody.
We'll see you next time.